Hit live.
I'll oh,
Okay.
all right.
I think we're live. All right, Billy.
GM.
How are you?
Okay. How
Yeah,
are you?
very good.
Very good.
I was
That's good.
I was wondering. Okay, so I saw your little stream where you did the whole reveal thing, and you said you're going to be offering, you know, counseling and whatnot. And I know we talked about before, kind of my plan and going in, and talking to a bunch of these work designated therapist or whatever. So something that the company that I work for pays for as a medical expense or whatever is
Yes.
therapy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to a lot of these therapists in this network about my anger issues. It's-
Well,
yeah.
well, I hope they don't cheap out on it.
What do you mean?
Well, they might have these therapists and other kind of protocols in place just to sort of satisfy uh, face value. Like, yeah, we care for our workers, and then they cheap out on it.
Well, no, no, no. The main company that my specific employer hires, it's a huge network.
Okay.
Like, yeah, huge network of professionals. Um, it's kind of, I guess, what they do or what their speciality. But it's a part of a benefits package that this company
All
kind of
right. So,
offers their employees.
well, I'll.
This it's crazy.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. And it should be somewhat of a kind of relief from your perspective and the other workers' perspective. Um, Puts me in a bit of an awkward position straight away. Then it's like throwing me against a whole corporation. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. No, because I want to have a counseling session with you to kind of work out the kinks on like
So
the
have
things I'm going to ask them and
so
tell them.
right. You say that future tense. So have you had any sessions or counseling with them so far? Have you met
Mm-mm.
therapists? Nothing at all.
No, but I've met many, many, many therapists. There's been a couple crisis points in my life where I'm like, I need to talk to a professional, and the majority of them seem to be the same.
Okay. Have you spoken? Now, this might not, because it's kind of like crosses confidentiality. But have you spoken to like, other co-workers or friends and family who've been to therapists and had their kind of verdict or experience trying to
Oh, I
figure?
know. I know plenty of people that have been to therapists, yeah, and
And
they're
then
like, yeah, it's not so helpful.
okay,
As a whole, they found therapists not to be so helpful.
okay. Don't use that as a measuring stick, so that when you go there, you already got a kind of expectation that ain't going to be very beneficial to you.
Right.
So try and enter with a clean slate, like clean mind, and try and get what you can out of it.
Yeah, I feel like the last time that I went looking for somebody logical and reasonable to talk to, I was met with a bunch of crazy bitches. Now, these were, I mean, I was going through a crisis, right? And I was seeking help to try to manage. And it was almost like these women were more unstable than I was at the moment. And
Uh,
they gave off a very needy, like, do you like me kind of vibe. It was really fucking weird. I,
I do hear things like that being said. That's not
yeah,
it's never a good sign,
right.
unfortunately. Um, it would have been helpful if you would have approached me about this after you've had some sessions with them
Mm-hmm.
instead of starting off with me,
Why?
because well, I'm not really part of the program as such. I haven't been through that school, as it
Right.
were.
I know.
So, um, our conversation when the stop clock properly starts, the session when the session begins officially,
Yeah.
then it will be something quite tailored and unique. Not that it's not going to be unique with the corporation, with mainstream therapists and counselors.
Right.
But after our session, it could influence what you experience. If this is like a little bit of an experiment where you want to try and compare and
Yeah.
contrast,
Yep.
then it could influence the direction in which you take further treatment.
Well, I am kind of hoping it will influence a little bit, just because certain points I want to bring up, I haven't really tested on a therapist yet, so it's going to test them on you.
Right. And if you take that knowledge with you into the counselor's office,
Mm-hmm.
don't be surprised if you stump them out. They might be a bit, I'm not too sure what to do here, because you're not really following my manuscript anymore.
Oh.
So if it was the other way around, if you came to me last, then you would have got to see how they automatically just try and throw you through the processing factory.
I don't know. I feel like I would still have like maybe 5 key things I wanted to say to them to gauge their reaction.
Yeah, and from getting to know you as well, I'm sure, regardless of anything we'll be discussing here, you'll probably give them food for thought, and that will also catch them out. They'll be like,
Yeah.
stop talking about whatever it is you're talking about. That's not really what I'm trained to deal with. And deflect or dismiss or minimize or whatever, some sort of countermeasures. And you'll probably leave feeling maybe not heard, not understood, or a bit of a waste of time or something. But that's still a quantifiable experience that you would gain if it wasn't like tainted. Tainted isn't really the right word, but I mean influenced or something like that. So if you really want to do this as a sort of experiment and see what these experiences are really like, then you kind of need to talk to them first.
I don't know.
You'd be comparing it with how other people are being treated as well in general. It's like, is this the service that's being offered? No wonder people feel dissatisfied having gone to therapy.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie. I'm here now, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh, let's say hi to everybody. Hey, Johnny Midnight. Johnny Midnight created a monster, by the way. Gone with John refuses to take the test, but typed himself as an INTJ. Hey, JR. Hey, Sam Fisher.
Okay, so it seems like a lot of people are now delving into the Myers-Briggs. Be careful, please, everybody, with this, because it's how can I put this sort of eloquently? A lot of people make a mistake when they self-type, because it's a subjective view. So if you like to think of yourself as an INTJ, there's a good chance you might not actually be that. So it is important to take some of these tests, and obviously these tests aren't accurate either. So there's a lot of things you need to factor in here. And it's more than just the fancy 4 letters that people like to gravitate towards. It's not even, I mean, those are the 4 cognitive functions, but you have to consider the other 4, as it were. So there's 8 cognitive functions, but then there's another 8, the sort of opposite, polar opposite. So there's 16 combinations, might I add. And that gives you the 16 different types. And then you've got the sort of dark side version, which gives you 32. So if I made this into like a scientific kind of analogy, imagine trying to have a thorough understanding of 32 combinations of chemicals. It will do your head in. There's a lot to learn and remember when it comes to the Myers-Briggs. And don't be so quick to reach a verdict or decision, because as life has its funny little ways of as soon as you think you know something, you realize that you know very little. So don't be so quick and bold to be like, I'm an IFJ, and sing it proud, because you probably might end up embarrassing yourself.
Well, I think the only reason he went to that is because me and Johnny both out the gate were kind of like, yeah, that's probably what he is.
But the thing is, we all possess all of these cognitive functions. So
Right.
you can watch any of these types and identify to some degree and be like, that's me. Now you're introducing this sort of subconscious cognitive bias of preferential how you would like to see yourself rather than how you actually are. See what I'm saying? This is why a lot of people like to go around saying they're an INFJ, when technically, apparently, statistically, it's one of the rarest types. So how is it there's so many INFJs around? It
doesn't make sense. But when I watch INFJ content, I'm like, there's people, I don't get that at all. That would never be me.
It's the same kind of phenomena. If I make it a bit more sort of grounded for the community's understanding, it's the same kind of aura phenomena. Pull, attraction is probably the best word that people like to say. I'm a Sigma, I'm an Alpha, I'm an Apex, I'm a whatever, I'm a staunch monk, MGTOW, black pill, yabba dabba doo, kung fu monk me. It's distorted and exaggerated. My advice is just golden rule number 1: keep your fucking mouth shut until you know what you're talking about.
By the way, JR. Hey, Primo, how are you? It's all right. Hey, Chaos. Good to see you. Long time no see, man. Oh, Smith is here.
Now, I'm not saying don't bother look into it.
It's a great personal development tool. I love it.
It is a tool, and you have to remember it's a tool. It does not it's not your identity. It's not who you are as a person. You are much more than just 4 letters. So do not lean into it thinking that this is some sort of golden egg that you've discovered. In fact, it's if you're not willing to put the work in, then you're embarking on something you should never even bother starting with. Another analogy is kind of like, if you can't cope with the sort of red pill truth bombs because truth hurts too much, then maybe it's better that you don't do so. So just be a bit cautious.
Yeah, some folks call the MBTI as the horoscope for intellectuals. That's funny. I can see that.
And it's also not really recognized as an official psychological tool as such. Like, you don't get diagnosed with whatever type it is. You go around quacking and making a song and dance about it, you probably get a diagnosis of some other actual disorder if you're not careful.
Yeah, the INTJ is what, Machiavellian tendencies and the traits that like very similarly look like psychopathy in some cases.
Remember, we've got it's like chemistry. You've got all of it. What matters is the quantities, and that's where the art form, as it were, comes into play. That's where the professional psychologists really need to come into it. Someone who's more logical based minded, as much as they like to champion their logic, will fall foul of this understanding, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because you're not factoring. If you're dismissing emotions and you don't value them, you think they're like a contamination to the data.
Yeah.
Then
you're talking about me.
No, I'm talking about TI and TE, the cognitive function. So those who possess thinking as a preference, because we all have T to some degree. So, like, unless we're talking about people who literally do have mental disorders, some sort of deficit in their cognitive function stack and their abilities, then like like they are missing, not to sound crude, but like missing parts of their brain. Then
Right.
everyone has all these chemicals, these qualities, these traits, these characteristics. It's the quantities and your preferential choosing.
Right.
But just because you might choose to be logical doesn't mean you are absent of emotion. It just means you put your logic foot forward first, followed by
Yeah.
your emotional foot second.
Yeah.
So you lead with your stronger foot. Some people lead with their emotional foot. In my case, I lead with my emotional foot first. Doesn't mean I don't have any logic.
Right.
Now, if you want to be adamant because logic doesn't like the idea, because emotions doesn't sound logical, so you're gonna pretend with denial that it doesn't exist or it doesn't influence you in any sort of way,
Right.
then you want to talk psychology, you're in the wrong field. Go
Yeah.
work in a pharmacist and work as a chemist.
Yeah.
Because if I was to say to you that you don't have to have a logical reason for a certain emotion, that will not compute. If I say,
Right.
like, just be happy, and you say, give me a logical reason for why I should be happy, and I say, just because, and I say to you, use your logic to figure it out. You won't, because you need emotional literacy to understand why being happy for the sake of just being happy is a valid reason in of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think emotions are important because they're your body's way of, they're like little messengers. So I think having, like you said, emotional literacy and knowing what your body's trying to tell you is important, so you can process that.
It's just as important.
Yeah.
And it could work the other way. Someone who's very emotionally orientated or leads with their emotional foot can easily turn around and say bafooey to logic. I don't really need logic. I'll just go with my heart. I'll just go with the flow. But then ask them to justify logically how they go about doing things, and they'll come undone. So you do need the ability to use both sides of the brain, or all four corners of the mind, or both logic and emotions. Likewise with intuition and sensing. You can't really have a system of processing information and data with malfunctioning areas. It affects the rest of the system.
Right.
But this is we're going into like an overview of the MBTI, which I don't think we're quite ready as a community for just yet. I'd rather emphasize the caution, and as an analogy again, it's the same kind of caution like with the red pill or the black pill or something like that, or having a monk life. There are pros and cons to everything. Do not think that this is some sort of cheat code book in life that will solve all your problems for you, and you don't have to do jack shit, or you can cut corners. No, you'll do yourself more harm and damage in the long run. You must proceed with caution, and if you don't know what you're doing, you must seek help. Do not be so arrogant to think that you can just figure it out on your own.
Hi, Bob. By the way, hope you're enjoying your retirement, sir. Yeah. So, JR said, "Man, Letopia and the boys are taking turns smacking the fuck out of PJ earlier." Did she show up somewhere? She doesn't fucking get it, does she? She feels, what's funny? This crazy bitch feels entitled to talk to people. She's been making comments under, I don't know, 50 different accounts that I keep blocking since 2000? What was it? December 2020 is when she made her first fucking comment on my channel. And she doesn't get it. She's not invited to the conversation. She doesn't fucking give up. I don't understand the level of fucking entitlement one must possess to continue going and fucking with people who want nothing to do with you. I don't get it. Is that an emotional thing? Because when I look at that, I'm like, something's fucked up with our brain.
Okay, so I mentioned about like a chemistry set and the combinations. When you start to
Yeah.
throw in things like the personality styles and disorders and things like that, yet more combinations will unfold. So it does get very, very complex.
Right.
But at the same time, pros and cons. The pro out of this situation for you guys and the community is that if you really are interested in your self-development, you'll find yourself less interested in wanting to deal with these parasitical leeches,
Crazy cunts. Yeah.
or put another way, more, yes. It's kind of like a separate kettle of fish in a way, and you can be curious, but it comes at a cost. It's either you're going to focus on them or you're going to focus on you. Now, which
Yeah.
would you rather do? Make up your mind. You can't have it both ways. Now, if you focus on what the crazy bitches are doing, it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost of you having to sacrifice yourself. So, adios, crazy bitches. We don't have time for you anymore.
Right. Yeah, she does. She'll do the whole feminist shaming. It's like, what? You're trying to put up boundaries? You must be gay. Yeah.
They're entitled to their opinion.
Right. Yeah, there's no way Scorpthot's a fucking INTJ. I'm sorry. Even a mentally unstable one. There's no way an INTJ would ever be a vegan, I would argue. It's not logical. Hello, Allah. You know what's strange, though? I came across a male INTJ that puppeted, and I think it was his third video that I listened to where he puppeted how important women's rights were and blah 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 blah. He was puppeting feminist stuff.
It
It
is
was
possible.
it was weird because I was like, why is this why is this guy white knighting for the
Well,
matriarchy?
okay, so some of you might be tempted to sort of try and join the dots and think that once you have a bit of a grasp on the Myers-Briggs, you can sort of allocate these to different personality disorders or political leanings.
Right.
It can, to some degree, but you'll find that every personality type potentially will be in every walk of life. So is it possible to have a feminist INTJ? Yes, it is. And not only that, to make it even more convoluted, sometimes depending on how healthy or how regulated the cognitive stack is, if there is disturbances, an INTJ at their core might appear as a different type. I think the opposite of an INTJ is what is it? ESFP, I think. There is an opposite. For every type you think you are, or whatever, or been classified as, there is an opposite to you. That will see, basically, who will see things, who will process their information and come to decisions in an opposite way than you do, which will seem like kind of alien and bizarro.
Yeah.
You might think they're your nemesis. But if you were stuck in a loop, or you have a crisis, suddenly now you're exhibiting behaviors that resemble a totally different type. So it's not straightforward, cut and dry. There is a lot of nuance that goes with all of this, and that's again why I'm saying be careful and don't be so quick. Keep your mouth closed for now until you know what you're doing. Get some more data, get some more information, talk to more people. Fine, that's great, but don't be so diehard committed, because if you'll have a tendency to then want to double down, and if you make this a core belief now, that's suddenly like I'm definite 100% through and through, and it turns out you're a bit mistaken. This is why it ends up becoming more harmful.
Johnny Midnight said there are a lot of feminist INFJs. I think there's a reason for that. Because feminism, being the man-hating death cult that it does a lot of indoctrination via raping women's feelings. So when they go to these universities, they sit them in a class which these young women collect student debt to, attend. And they tell them fucking horror stories about women in the past that have suffered atrocities at the hands of men. So if they're not already INFJ type personalities and emotionally unstable, like indoctrinating them before the age of 25 like that makes them that way. That's why I say these fucking crazy cunts that these professors are abusive, because this shit is abusive to make young women afraid of men like that. Just to recruit people for their fucking death cult, because these crazy lesbian cunts that are professors at these universities don't have children, so they don't produce more people. So these cults have to recruit for their organization.
Just to throw a little food for thought for Johnny Midnight here,
Yeah.
they say, and for good reason, one of the preferred targets. Oh, wait, let me put it this way first. Would you say feminists largely are narcissistic?
Yes.
Right. One of the favorite victims of a narcissist is the INFJ.
Well, if they're so rare.
Yeah, but they're so empathic and they absorb. It's very feeling based, and narcissists are geared to that's fuel and supply for them. So they make great targets. But if a narcissist gets hold of an INFJ, it's and then an INFJ is very, once they're air quotes in love and things like that, they're very committed and loyal and will fight for the relationship. So imagine that an INFJ stuck with a narcissist who is fighting to keep the relationship going. The narcissist loves it. And that's why they're a particular prized victim, because they've got a lot of love to give and they've got a lot of tolerance for pain and endurance. They've got that. That's kind of like their core strengths in a way. So it's a rich fuel source for them. Now I see Timothy has a question.
Yeah. What is it, Timothy? By the way, hello, Timothy.
Oh, there's another little fun fact or whatever for y'all to consider, which is when you go saying I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, there's more to it than that. You'll find you possess both. It's the question of which foot do you lead with? Is it a introverted foot or a extroverted foot? But don't be mistaken, you have 2 feet, unless one's been chopped off or something. But so just saying you're an introvert doesn't mean you have no extroversion about you. There is.
Oh, Jeremy, good to see you. Long time no see, dude. I matched up INTJ to explains a lot for me, but who knows? Lots of questions. We can make changes growing up to compensate for type 2. I agree. There's a lot of nuances. It can lead the wrong way. Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer that most of people's personality is due to environment. I mean, there's this nature versus nurture fucking argument, which I think the psychology field has gotten terribly wrong for a long time, and they've kind of leaned into their nature is like biological because they've been making excuses for people's shitty behavior for a long time. And that's kind of what I want to get into with my counseling session.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. Actually,
Yeah.
you're slightly being scientific, but at the same time, you're also being environmentally.
Well, my mindset on people's behavior is, I think I kind of more align with the biopsychosocial model to all
Right.
of it. Like the environment plays a role in people's, you
Yeah.
know,
So to support what you're saying here,
yeah.
um, see, this is something I'm theorizing. I don't see it in any Myers-Briggs videos, so you hear it here first, folks. Is that whatever type you are, whatever personality you are, is not by accident. It's not for the fun of it. You are this way. It is for a reason. And as GM is indicating, it comes down to how you were brought up in your childhood and the way in which it is shaped. Particularly if we're using Myers-Briggs as a baseline, the
Hmm.
cognitive, the configuration of your cognitive stack is to fill a niche. So all of what I just said might be a bit, what the it's just jargon. I'll put it this way: if you were growing up and there was a deficit in emotional substance, then there's a good chance the way you're shaped going forwards will be very emotionally based. You fill in the gap. Your personality develops in a way to solve a problem you were experiencing when you were younger. So that means your personality and your thinking processes is a form of coping so that you can make sense of the world, um, and feel your needs that were not being met during your upbringing, if that all makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, because like for me, if emotional needs weren't necessarily being met on a regular basis, I wouldn't find them, you know, I wouldn't tend to use that as a survival tactic.
It's not as
Whereas somebody growing up in a super spoiled household who tends to be more narcissistic and emotionally unstable, their environment nurtures the emotional instability because that's how I think that's how I don't know, they adapted to their environment.
right. So if the environment is giving them all this stimuli, then
Mm,
they wouldn't really develop to be a sensory type of person because that need is already being met. So where is
right.
it they're lacking? It might be in a intuition sense, in which case, so they might go forward in life being a bit more thinking of patterns and concepts and maybe mysticism or something like this, or
Yeah.
world building is how I would describe it. World building. Um, another way of describing. And the thing is, it's not as cut and dry as you might like to think either. So there is a nuance there, but I'm not going to cover that right now because it'll just overcomplicate yet more things to factor and consider in. But as a comparison, let's say you have children, it's not uncommon that when you raise your children, you try and give them the things that you missed out on or lacked, or you try and undo any of the damage, so that your children don't suffer in the same way that you suffered.
Yeah. I don't see Timothy's question popping up. And yeah, JR, you're right there too. JR posted up on the wall with a sniper rifle.
So Sam Fisher is asking me, what's your understanding of
Yes.
your personality type? I always
And you,
thought it was some astrology mystic mumbo. Um,
yeah. So
in,
I'm gonna let you monologue. I'm gonna grab another coffee. By the
okay,
way, hey Rusty, good to see you.
you're rusty. Salute. Uh, it is a little bit mumbo jumbo, but it does serve a purpose. It wouldn't be there if it didn't. So there are, as much as you might want to sort of turn your nose up at it, it does have its time and place. Um, this can, for example, can be what gives philosophy its gravitas in a way. like answering the questions of what is the meaning of life, or what is the purpose of who I am, or who am I, those sort of things. So that those kind of explorations of deep thinking and thought and philosophy come from that kind of direction. And empathy as a general subject, topic, is important because this is how we build relations and connect with people. If you didn't really have empathy, then you would have pretty severe deficits and complications, and problems. Unfortunately, like it or not, people, we're all humans and we're all on this planet. So unless we're all robots at some point, you're going to have to factor in emotions as much as you don't like them. Tough. Sorry. As much as you might think empathy and emotions is a vulnerability or a weakness, and people would be far better off without them, it is for that very reason you need to have a good understanding of them, because without that understanding, that component, then you're not being as logical as you would like to think or believe you are. Is it logical to only have half your toolbox? No. So why would you do that? So and vice versa, emotional people could easily turn around and say bafui to logic, we don't need logic, and with your logic you'll be saying to them that you're making a grave mistake. Where we the logic people are very important because we're Einstein and and all this. So it's the same argument either way. And obviously, if you're carrying on with Sam's question, if you're always got your head in the clouds with the psychedelics in the cosmos and all this, you're not really anchored in reality. You're living in la la land to some large degree. You could argue we're all in la la land of our own manifestations, shape or forms, one way or another. But that also causes problems. And what we'll find at the end of the day is that a balance needs to be derived for a healthier way of being. And it's good where you're able to, and this is what makes it not really a disorder, because someone who is disordered won't be able to accomplish this. But someone who is more mindful or has better literacy and awareness and understanding will be able to do these explorations in either direction. They can process the ideas even though they might not necessarily have conviction and belief. They can at least explore, discover some ideas, see how they connect, and it's sort of like play around with toys a little bit. So there's a bit of experimentation. Like if you have a disorder, then this process there would be problems with trying to do this. But I presume you're talking about people like the INFJ, for instance, or the INFP. They're the main ones that are kind of spiritually mystics. And it's not just because of empathy. When you look at the cognitive function stack, first auxiliary, like parent, aunt, baby, inferior, or the first auxiliary, tertiary, you see that there are not only are they interwoven, but there is the intro and extroversion aspect of it, and you can't have it both ways. So that plays a part also in like the sort of pros and cons of being an extroverted or introverted, well, these cognitive functions being that way, which ultimately means that no one will have the the answer or the system or whatever. No one will have it all. No one can have it all. And so what makes a society successful is a blend or a mixture of all these different types, so that we got the bases covered in that way. Let's say you're an emotional person and you're trying to make a logical decision. Well, then go find someone who's logical to do that for you. Or let's say you're a logical person and you're having some sort of emotional crisis, then don't bother trying and use your logic to solve it. Go find someone who is more emotionally minded to help you. So if you know yourself well enough, then you'll know where your limitations are, and then you'll know where to seek help. And that is why I'm saying, don't be so arrogant to think that you can solve everything on your own, because it's theoretically impossible. You will need
Right.
some kind of input,
Yes.
data from
Feedback from
elsewhere.
the environment.
Yes, and this is
Yes.
what helps make strong relationships. It's not
Yeah.
about similarities, although that helps. You know, you're on the same wavelength, you're on the same page, you've got the same interests and values and whatnot. But what makes a relationship even stronger is the way of compatibility. Is being able to have an interdependency where you're watching each other's back.
Right.
That means you need trust as well, people. So if you find life hard to trust, everyone's backstabbing you, or the crazy bitches everywhere, you're going to have a hard
Yes.
time allowing yourself to be vulnerable when looking for assistance.
Well, and all you got to do is not open yourself up to crazy bitchery. Like
Um,
you have to draw boundaries there, because crazy
y-
bitches love to emotionally terrorize people.
yes, unfortunately, there will always be a chink in the armor somewhere. It might not be the
Mm.
same area for different people.
Hmm.
So, and the thing is, the predatory, um, toxic people
Yeah.
are they're also in an arms race. So when they attack, they're looking to see where is your weak spot, because they know you got one and you do have one. But this is where, again, if you have awareness, you can accommodate for these things, and if you have friends, they can also assist to look after you and keep you in check.
Rusty's bringing up a whole new philosophy or system of typing. I think we need to be able to identify the fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance. I'm less concerned about the designations of INFJ, etc. See, this is talking about attachment styles now.
Yes. Well, Rusty's doing a good thing here, because
Mm,
he's illustrating just how complicated this landscape of a minefield of psychology really is.
right.
Just when you think you know it all, or you're like, oh, okay, we got a good generalized understanding, here comes Rusty saying, right, well, what about attachment styles? What about love
Yeah.
style? What about
Yeah.
ego defenses?
Right.
So all of this starts to play a part, and it really does take a level of skill and experience to be able to decipher what it is you're dealing with. You can't just look at things superficially and be like, I know what I'm dealing with. It's a crazy bitch. Maybe it is, but
Yep.
maybe it's a crazy bitch who is in
Just
and
temporarily infected with crazy bitchery. There's that.
a crazy bitch who is maybe bipolar, and you're just catching them at their mania. You haven't seen them in their depression state or something.
Oh, they're
Um,
just as crazy
so,
when they're going through that, though.
but the point still remains, is there are other factors that play into it.
Yeah.
You know, and with that, there is, so not only do we have to factor in like a balance and the combinations, but cycles, phases, temperaments,
Yeah.
environmental factors. Um,
That's why I tend to put all these crazy bitches under the same umbrella, because they all have something very common at their core. They don't have values and principles that guide their life, like basic principles. Their morals are very slippery. They're
so
not kind of black and white with their fucking boundaries.
a way of describing what you just said is
Yeah.
the clue is in the name. They're disordered. They're
Yes.
without structure.
Right.
They are without shape, without form. They are
Right.
formless. So, what does that mean for everyone else? Well, when you're not a crazy bitch, you have structure, you have a framework, you have shape, you have definition, as in like boundaries, you have parameters.
Right.
Uh, you are solidified in a way, you know, and you can be conceptualized and things like this. The more crazier bitches type people, they are more of a. I like to use the blob, not the blob, the thing analogy. They're just a mass. They're like almost like a mist of cloud that has no real shape. They can
Right.
shape shift in a way.
Right.
So there's no stability there.
No, they're all emotionally and mentally fucking unstable.
Right. Well, if you were
they
but you see how this could, if you were to introduce or inject some stability and some of these measures into their life intervention,
Mhm.
then it would theoretically kind of be possible to
Yes.
organize who they are,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then they can they can stick to their word better.
Yes, but
Then,
in such a free society, that isn't possible
well,
unless they're
that's the problem.
confined somewhere.
That's the problem. So society is now trying to dissolve all of this, all of
Yes.
these things that would actually be good for you. Like think of
Yeah.
children when they're growing up. It's good for children to have routine, to have a schedule, to have patterns that they can model and behaviors that they can model and
Yeah.
build up their framework and structure, and they start to solidify their identity is all over the place while they're young, but it
Yeah.
starts to coalesce as they get older and become um, consolidated, and they can build from that as a building platform. The crazy and disordered don't have that going for them, and at the same time they don't want that either because they look at it as
Right.
liberation, as freedom, as I can do what
Oh,
I could be everything, I could be everywhere. um,
right.
you can't get me because I don't exist, and in a way it's true, they don't exist
All right.
because
But you said something key. You said they don't want.
no, they don't want.
Yeah. That they're very childish in their choices they make for themselves. That's
Yeah,
why, like, even though it's something that they literally need it, they don't want it.
they don't want it. No.
Yeah.
You cannot control the uncontrollable. You know,
Well, you can if you lock their asses up.
uh, to some extent, but
Mhm.
they'll still have that kind of um defiance, defiancy. Is that the word? Rebellion, rebelliousness about them. Um, or another one is like, do not bother trying to be sincere with those who are insincere. You know, it's this reluctance to want to, because when you structure yourself and take form and all this, and you know you have boundaries and limitations put on you, rules in place, the rules of life and things like that,
Mhm.
uh, we understand the benefits,
Yeah.
but from their point of view they see it as suffocation. It's preventing them from just doing what they want. But that's the lesson of be careful what you ask for, because now they've got the problem, which is they're transparent. They don't really uh, tangible. They've got no sense of self. It's all over the place. They're they're on meds and all sorts of things.
Right.
So it's not a quality of life really anyone should aspire to. But there they are. That's the choice. They made the Faustian deal with the devil,
Yeah.
and that's what they chose to go with.
Yeah. It'd be nice to cut off all the head meds.
An accurate diagnosis is important because sometimes these medications can actually help, but without a proper diagnosis, they make the situation
Is it
worse.
though? I don't know.
There is some.
I've met many people on fucking meds, and they don't seem to be diagnosed.
I think a lot of it. I think that they're just like hit, unless it's very accurate. I do think there's some maybe a small argument in favor of meds, um, in maybe small doses for a short period of time. But unless you've got an accurate diagnosis and the other conditions and parameters are in place, then on the whole, it's going to do more harm.
Yeah, but when you say diagnosis, it's like when these psychology folks diagnose people with these mental illnesses and then give them fucking drugs for them
Yeah.
instead of solving the problem, they're alleviating a symptom of the problem.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And it also brings up another big problem, which is, so we are very underdeveloped in our ways of diagnosing.
Right.
You know, if the so-called professionals make blunders all the time and they're changing definitions, like with the DSM, uh,
Right.
and suddenly now things aren't a disease or a disorder anymore. It's a bit wishy-washy, and then
Yeah.
and then we in the community are now touching on MBTI and trying to typecast people. Oh boy, that's what I'm saying. You have to be careful what you're doing here, everybody, because you're essentially like diagnosing. Or people go around going, "You're a narcissist." It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Not only are you devaluing the meaning of the word, but you're it's debauchery what you're doing. You know, rarely will you ever hear me, for example, call someone a flat out narcissist, because one, I don't have the credentials to do so. Two, it devalues the word. Three, you don't really know that person to be sure enough to say that they are a narcissist. At least play it safe with PC culture and just say they're very highly narcissistic. At least then it's like saying allegedly. At least then you're um, giving yourself a little wiggle room.
Yeah, MGTOW Outlaw brings up a good point. Important thing to understand is they're victims of ideologies and other things forced upon them. Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. Yet another Pandora's box he's opening up here.
Right?
Because you've got ideologies. So how much of this is a belief? How much of it is an ideology? How much of it is a personality? How much of it is a disorder? How much of it is genetics? How much of it is medical conditions? Because, for example, me being diabetic, sugar levels play an important factor in my mood. You know, if I'm having a hypo, I sound like I'm drunk and I'm happy and I'm giggly and I'm
Right.
kind of whatever. And if my sugars are high, I'm more cranky.
Yeah.
When my sugars are perfect, I feel fantastic. So um, I remember someone's talking about emotions are a reflection of your conscious state, and that's not quite. I mean, like with diabetes and sugar as an example, that
It's
sort of proves that
physical.
it's not quite always the case. There's always like a little caveat to these things, unfortunately, and nuance. Um, and now you know why I spend a lot of my time racking my brain over all this shit.
Right. Johnny Midnight said, yeah, I want to ask Billy if the survivor community has hypersensitive people calling anyone they disagree with narcissists. Yes, Johnny, and those are called fucking feminists. And this is how feminists bastardize and molest the psychology field and the psychology terms and turn them into weapons to emotionally terrorize people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the survivor community is very unhealthy, unfortunately, and I say that um, with regret because, believe it or not, originally, kind of thing, one of the first places I went to were survivor communities, and it
Right.
was the absolute shock and horror of what I was witnessing.
Yes.
Get me the hell out of here.
Yeah.
These are supposedly people on the road to recovery. These are the ones you supposedly want to go to for guidance on healing,
Right.
inner
Right.
work. You know, these are the so-called empaths.
Right.
These are the so-called the nice, caring people.
Right? They're the most fucking dysfunctional.
And there they are organizing lynch mobs,
Yeah. Yeah.
running smear campaigns, just doing all sorts of atrocious things.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, because they're full of crazy bitches.
it's a
And
cafeteria of supply as well.
yeah, but also I blame the fucking ones at the helm of it, the ones that create these people down under them in the psychology field. We have an entire field that is supposed to be responsible for helping these people, and they just lie to them and make them worse.
Yes, and unfortunately, scary is. I don't want to say it, but there have been times when I have said it before. The parallels to the survivor community and communities that we all congregate around,
Yes.
can be a bit too close for comfort.
Yeah.
You know, so be mindful and wary. If you're not willing to observe or self-reflect or take check and balances on yourselves in this kind of regard, then go look at the survivor community. It would be like looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
Ouch. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, Kush. Best thing to do, just ignore, just block. She'll never stop. She'll never fucking be respectful of anybody else's boundaries by leaving them the fuck alone when they've clearly asked multiple times. She'll never be respectful of anybody else. So, ever. She feels entitled to be heard. This society, this gynocentric fucking culture that we have, has indoctrinated and convinced that crazy bitch that people have to accept her and have to listen to her when that's not the case. She doesn't know what boundaries are. I picked her up from the survivor community when I was over there. It's some crazy bitch baggage I've picked up along my journey across the internet. And that crazy bitch came from the survivor community.
I think she does know about boundaries. It's just that she doesn't have any regard towards them, so feels entitled to cross them.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's not oblivious to what she's doing.
Yeah.
She knows she's trespassing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She does.
She does it on purpose. So whenever I see her pop up, I'm like, oh, that crazy cunt's still fucking alive. She's going to transgress some boundaries, and it's going to end well, and not going to end well for her one of these days. Because you know damn well she does this shit in real life too.
Yeah. And in other forms as well, in other behaviors.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like verbal interactions
Right.
or relations with people, but, well, depending on the kind of caliber of fucked up-ism they've got, then, you know, they might rage at the toaster or something like that because it burnt their bread. Yeah.
Yeah.
These disorders aren't bound and just like contained in one aspect of it. It bleeds out. If disorders are, they're kind of anti-boundaries, they don't like boundaries, there's no reason why. There's nothing stopping the disorder bleeding out into other disorders, like, you know, that phenomena where someone who might be narcissistic is now suddenly more psychopathic, or they're exhibiting behaviors or histrionic or something. There seems to be like this blend going on.
Yes. Because they're tools. They're tools crazy bitches use to get their fucking way. End of story. Like,
there's nothing to stop it from spilling out. And
right.
if one tool is not doing the job anymore, then easy peasy, use another tool to do the job. You'd be a shitty sort of, you'd be an unsuccessful narcissist if that's the lane you stuck in.
Yeah.
You know, now think about how competitive and how superiority they must feel about themselves. So if they can acquire the traits of other disorders to bolster their arsenal, the more the
Right.
merrier.
Yeah.
That's why it's grouped together as a cluster. It's a even the psychologists are a bit meh. How do we categorize these people? Okay, we'll just put them underneath this umbrella, cluster B. What is cluster B?
Right.
It's the wild cluster.
And they call it a comorbidity. if they confess to a certain style of abuse. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're just all crazy bitches use all the tools though. Like, it depends on the environment that they're in, and if one's not working, they'll switch to another one.
Yeah,
And it's all fucking emotional terrorism, which is strange.
there's a few things at play here. It also makes it hard for by being able to switch. It makes them more mobile, and we already know that they don't like having boundaries and perimeters and shape and form. So
Right.
this allows them to be more everywhere, and it means it's harder for you to pin them down with accountability.
Right.
You want to say you want to pin them down with being a narcissist. Let's use that one because that's kind of like associated with being the worst of the worst. Unfortunately, with pop culture, it's like the great insults. But they go, well, I'm not a narcissist. I'm just being a bit bipolar today, or I'm just being a bit depressive today. It's like,
right. Or I'm a borderline.
Something like that.
Yeah. BPD. Yeah.
Or I'm a survivor victim, and this is PTSD. Yeah.
Right.
Me, you meanie.
Right.
Like, well,
yes.
It's a way of. It comes underneath really the term of just self-preservation and protection. Like, you can't get me whenever you try. And this is what I was saying before, that you can't control the uncontrollable because they'll just escape. Like, if you really do, they'll escape into the world of illusion and become hallucinations and things like that.
I don't agree. That's one of the things in the psychology realm that I don't fucking agree with. They call it, you said it, self-preservation and like defense mechanisms and stuff. I think the feminists have flipped it upside down because to me it looks like fucking predatory behavior. Like, they're not defending, they're predating upon the people when they do these things.
But why? What purpose does preying on people serve? It's part of to feed into their psyche.
But
it's take someone else's. They can't generate their own energy. There's no self to do this, so they require. So it's not like predatory as in like tiger and sheep. It's more like parasitic, like leeches. They're sucking blood, they're sucking the energy from someone else to sustain their own or them as an like the human centipede to sustain themselves as an organism.
right.
So they're not just praying because meat is tasty. They're praying because they need the nutrients from other people.
See, I don't even know if that's true. I think they want the nutrients. They don't need it. They want it because that's easier than actually developing and doing for yourself.
Well, especially at the stage they get to later in life, they miss that kind of growth in their development at childhood, most likely, to be able to do that and achieve that. So they become dependent, technically, and so there forevermore, they will always require, air quotes, assistance. See, they wouldn't really call it predatory. It's more like from that they'll say, "Oh no, you're just helping me survive. You're just giving me your blood so that I can stay alive."
Right. But they have to predate upon people and coerce them into helping them in order to receive help.
Yeah. So they are predatory.
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, you can have two things both being true. You know, they are predatory, but it is so that they can survive and outlive the prey. They have no desire to end their life. You know, they want to live beyond the realms of reality and life itself. You know, transcend into the almighty greatness.
Yeah.
So how are they going to do that without sacrifice? They need people
Yeah.
to sacrifice so that they can live your life for theirs. You
Yeah.
must die so that they can live.
Yeah.
So really, the primary goal is for them to sustain themselves, is to persevere, to survive. It's a survival mechanism, and following that requires them to be protective of themselves, so they don't get smited out, and then to predate on those.
Smite it out.
Well, so they don't get extinguished or whatever, you know.
Oh, it's gonna come anyway.
Well,
So
this is the
they,
thing. So
they
if I
they don't have any real protection against what's
no,
fucking coming for them.
there is no
So
sustainable fuel source. So eventually,
yeah,
like prognosis, long term is they will shrivel up and wither and die. You know, there's nothing you could, even if you want to be the sacrificial lamb, even if you
right,
want to be the white knight or whatever,
right.
there's no way you can keep up with this out of control, ultra high demand that they require. It's a constant feed. Um, I mean, basically, it sucks to be them. You know, uh, it's a terrible way of having to exist, but it's all they've got as well. They've got no real other choice of being any other way. I know we can say, hey, if we give them therapy or train them or put tight controls and
Stop
restrictions,
enabling. Stop
then
giving. See,
yeah, that
it's
doesn't that does
basic human behavior
no, yeah. No,
fundamentals.
I agree. Stop enabling, stop feeding them, but that's
Yeah,
not going to make them suddenly turn around and go, "Oh, okay, I better start doing the right thing." No, it just basically cuts their fuel and supply off, and they crawl underneath a rock and
and
die.
die. Good,
Yeah, so that's
good.
the way it's going to be, basically. Spoiler alert,
Sorry, spoiler alert.
you know.
I mean, it saves them. It saves us from having to burn them at the stake or put them up against the wall and shooting them.
Yeah, you don't really want to burn it because the smells and
Yeah.
the fatty acids and the cleanup and all that. It's
Yeah, I don't want to pollute the environment with the and burnt
yeah,
hair. Burning hair doesn't smell good either.
no, I mean, yeah.
So Sam Fisher has this question. So yeah, this is a question that's been on my mind for a while now. Don't take this the wrong way. How did you avoid the feminist trap, and what is your incentive for participating in the movement against it? Ooh, that's a great set of questions. It's weird. I didn't even know feminism was a fucking real thing. I mean, I heard about it before a couple times throughout my adult life. And I mean, when I heard a feminist talk about like the ideology and, how they puppet some things and just looking at them, I just, for a second, was like, oh my God, look at that crazy bitch, and I didn't listen to them. I didn't really pay attention to them because I'm like, what they're saying is fucking bullshit. And I didn't fully understand that there was, for one, so many of them. For two, that they're created in these universities. And for three, they're in every fucking structure of our society in positions of power and influence and authority. And they're literally changing the way people behave in society. So I didn't take them seriously just because I looked at them for like 2 seconds and was like, this crazy bitch is full of shit. They're lying. Like, they're just crazy. Good thing nobody listens to them. But that was actually not the case. People actually fucking listen to them, and they have power. So
I'll give you a systematic explanation. You won't
hold
really.
on, Billy. Before you go into this, let me finish explaining this.
Okay.
How did you avoid? So avoiding the feminist trap, I think because I was just busy. I was raising my son, working, just, being a part of life. My incentive for participating in the movement against it, I think, would be I just don't like crazy bitches. And people don't really have to listen to them. And I kind of understand why a lot of people do in a lot of areas of life, but I think my movement against them is a little different than other people's. I actually want to rid them of all these corporations in positions of power. I want them to be fucking fired everywhere. I want feminism to be fucking outlawed as the domestic terrorism fucking group that it is. I mean, it's abusive. It abuses children. It's fundamentally a death cult. So I'm not a fan of hurting people like that, of lying to people, and ruining society. I mean, it's the biggest organization that is literally destroying society right now. So I don't know what else to say about that.
I can put it in a sterile analytical perspective, which you
Go
won't
for it.
really like, but
I won't.
it's just well, I don't know, because it kind of makes it takes away the idea of free will in a way. So let me explain. Life is a constant battle of push and pull in a way, left and
Mm-hmm.
right, down, or whatever you want to sort of describe it as.
Yeah.
So just as much as back whenever the olden day when feminism was tiny as a minority, was
Mm-hmm.
unnoticed, it manifested because like, hey, you guys weren't listening to the stream earlier. We've already covered this. There was a niche, there was a gap in the makeup of society. So generally, what I'm saying is that for the most part, people were following a consensus, a societal norm, the status quo, and that creates a gap. Feminism slips in, it starts to grow. Now it's switched around.
Wait. What do you mean about gap? Because I see it as a fucking parasitic mind virus and
Yeah,
emotional
so
terrorism.
that's one of the that's a way of putting the gap. So the gap, like, so for the most part, society had shared morals, beliefs, ethics, values, and all this sort of good stuff, um, and being fair to one another, to be honest to one another. Well, what's the flip side of this? That means there's a gap there where you can get away in life if you are the opposite. You can be dishonest. You could be you could be exploitative,
Mm,
right? There's a niche there. It's like
see,
criminals.
they are criminals, but they take advantage of people's kind nature. That's
Right.
where they get
So,
in.
so if you've got a society, for the
Yeah.
most part, who are kind and they're honest, they're trusting, they don't lock their doors at night,
Right.
then a criminal will be like, right, what am I going to exploit here? Ah,
Yeah.
well, these people don't lock their doors, so I'm going to become a burglar then.
Yeah.
Like, should I become a murderer? Should I become a thief? Should I become a con art? Oh, I'll become a burglar because people are clearly not locking their doors.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a niche there. So it's kind of automatic in a way. Whenever you build a system, there is always going to be the sort of the counter argument side of things.
Right.
Just like how you might have uh, uh, feminism, there'll be the counter side of that, or like traditionalism or something. So feminism found a little gap. They realized, we can play the victim card. Because why? Because for the most part, people sympathize with victims and don't question the victim. So they took advantage of it. They exploited that.
Right.
So that style of criminality
Mm.
grew. More and more people became feminists.
Right.
We're now in a position where it's kind of the paradigm, the pendulum has swung the other way. Now the more conservative, traditional, honest, upfront people, we're the minorities, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
bit of a niche. So even though, so the sterile argument I'm making here is that I do believe that you made a good choice, GM, and you do it for good reasons and things like this. But that, by the by, in a way, with the structure of society
Mm-hmm.
and so on,
Mm-hmm.
you would have naturally gravitated to fill that niche of pushing against
Mm.
feminism. has done.
Yeah.
So in a way, your
It's
free
not a
will.
question of if, it was just a question of when. And I think
Right, someone
when,
was going to fill in
yeah,
your boots. I think your free will and you consciously choosing to do it just gives you the extra motivation.
yeah, and I think when I kind of woke up to what was going on, because I mean I saw a lot of different problems, different places, and I gravitate towards solving problems, and I think the timing was kind of perfect.
Yeah,
Like when Cam turned 16 and got his car, that was kind of a stage of super independence in his life where he needed me less. So I was like, what am I going to do to fill this time? And I kind of started spending more time online, and I was like, what the hell's going on? What is all this crazy victory that
yeah.
I'm seeing everywhere?
You'll see this kind of phenomena, this pattern of behavior. It's not coinky dink. It's not some synchronicity thing of the cosmos,
Right,
as much as
right,
some more of the mystic-minded people might like to think that all the stars have aligned.
right.
It's mathematical sort of
Yeah.
like probability. It's kind of like, and you'll see it replicated. Like think of movies. You'll have a whole bunch of action movies.
Hmm.
Suddenly you'll have a gap in the market. No one's doing, I don't know, a comedy. Okay,
Yeah.
right, we'll make a comedy movie then.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously, if it's the only comedy movie in the box office and people are wanting, they'll go see it. So it'll make good sales because there's no other movie competing with it.
Right.
And that's another advantage. It's that competition where you're more successful if you're the only competitor.
Mm.
You know, if everyone is a feminist, if everyone is a lion, the lion dies because there's no one to
Right.
um, eat anymore or whatever.
Right.
So difference um, is advantageous. And again, which is why when it comes to relationships, for example, having someone who is different to you instead of just a copy of you
Hmm.
is far better than someone who is. I mean, yes, like-mindedness, yes, cohesion is one thing, but you grow, you evolve through your differences.
Yeah. Yeah. Smith
Sometimes,
said,
sometimes
go
these
ahead.
adaptations aren't successful, you know,
Hmm.
but think of evolutionary science now. But sometimes these adaptations and modifications are a tremendous advantage and leg up and inspiring to other people because then if it uh, survival of the fittest sort of
Yeah.
Darwinism, then that gets replicated um, further and further. So looking into the crystal ball, what I imagine would happen is feminism has overplayed its hand and will start to shrink.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Traditionalism and more conservative mindedness will take precedence. But someday, far in the future, we'll see it shift again. I don't think it will ever be this
Not in
way.
our lifetime.
In
Yeah.
maybe not, hopefully not, you know, and hopefully not
Yeah.
in our children's lifetime.
We've
Uh,
seen the worst of it already. We've been
we'd
over
be
that.
arrogant. Well, we'd be arrogant to think that once it's been once shitty behavior has been swept on, not even swept, but I mean like buried in the ground, that we'll never see some kind of controversy again in the future. Like there'll always, unfortunately, as much as we dream about a world without narcissists, there will always be narcissists.
Yeah.
It's, um, it'll just be hiding, you know. Just because there's sharks in the water doesn't mean you should stop swimming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Smith said,
sorry.
he said didn't want her son indoctrinated by crazy bitches. While raising him, so funny story. My mom was a crazy bitch, super emotional terrorist. I guess a lot of my personality stems from having an actual really good dad in my life that kind of kept me grounded and didn't have a lot of power to intervene with the feminist state that my mom was able to use against him. So he was around as best as he could, but my mom was definitely a crazy bitch. So I raised my son to be able to defend himself from crazy bitchery. That's why when I kind of came online and I was like, wow, all these dudes don't know how to defend themselves from crazy bitches, like, and emotional terrorists. Like it took a kind of a lifetime of raising him to give him the tools he needs to protect himself from emotional terrorism. And I didn't realize that a lot of guys just, for one, aren't equipped with such tools, can spot it easily. Like JR, for instance, he's the one that I've seen that spots it the quickest, and he puts up a fucking hard no boundary. He's like, nope, out. Like, will not deal with any crazy bitchery of any kind. While as I've seen other guys like entertain crazy bitches, like they want to play with them, they want to play their game with them. Meanwhile, these parasites are fucking sucking the life out, and like it's just weird. Different men's level of protection against emotional terrorism, because some guys don't even know that the friendly, like, little superficial pleasantries and then the random jab is grooming you for fucking for torture. It's a form of torture.
To add to what you're saying,
Yeah.
like we're talking about try and look at it as like criminality.
Yes.
Factor in grooming, and
Yeah.
that's what you were protecting your son from being groomed into
Yeah.
a toxic culture mindedness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, when you look into grooming, you know, a lot of these victims don't realize. Well, it kind of defeats the object. They don't realize they're being groomed. So
Right.
guys don't realize that the things they've experienced, they were being corralled into those situations.
Right.
It wasn't just like a overnight incident. This was
Right.
something that was cultivated, conditioned, trained into them, so that
Yeah.
they would be none the wiser. They would think this is normal, this is
Right.
fine.
Right.
And you look how the victims feel when they're groomed. They feel like they belong. They feel like they're being loved. They feel that, like gang culture. They feel like
Yeah.
they're part of something bigger. And then they disconnect from those who actually do love them and trust and look after them.
Yeah.
You know, and then you start looking at cult formations, and bingo.
Yeah. Yeah, Cam's really funny when he meets people. He just, I mean, it takes him no time at all. Like, he's pretty sensitive to fucking bullshittery. Like, he can kind of judge people's intentions right off the bat, and I think that's important. It's an important skill to have in self-protection. See, and that's Johnny, you're right. Different levels of tolerance with crazy bitchery. And I think our society has tolerated too much of it. They've been forced to tolerate emotional terrorism, because that's what crazy bitchery is. It's fucking emotional terrorism. So I would like to get rid of it altogether. I don't know. Crazy bitches tend to remove themselves from my presence. So that's another thing. Like, I, as a hairstylist working in a community that's kind of a college town, I had professors that actually did their hair. One in particular, and I didn't know gender studies was one of these key disciplines or whatnot that promulgate this bullshit. But I literally had a gender studies professor client that I've had for over a decade. I mean, I would see her every, 6 to 8 weeks for the past fucking decade. And during her appointment, we would discuss just normal life stuff. Like, she was married, she had a son. I literally did her hair for her wedding. So when I woke up to this and I started talking to my clients about this stuff, we had a 3-hour fucking conversation, and that was the last time I saw her. And it started with me asking her, what the hell is up with this feminist bullshit? And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, dude, what's going on? Like, tell me what you know about this. She's like, oh my God, I'm excited because this is literally my life's work. And I was like, oh, please inform me. And it was a bunch of fucking indoctrination. It was a bunch of puppetry. It was a bunch of mental fucking gymnastics to try to rationalize the extermination of men, pretty much. And yeah, it was fucking bullshit. And that was the last time I saw her, because I don't fucking buy this shit. And she changed. She completely fucking changed when she was saying these things. It was weird. So I think some of those people are also ideologically infected. But I'm trying to figure out the true believers versus the go along to get alongers, because I think there's a lot more people that tolerate it than actually believe it and push it. Oh, Johnny. Is that right? What is this?
There will come a point where, and it's already taking place, where the more people start to focus on them, on their own internal workings, and they will have to do this eventually anyway. So you don't really get much of a choice here. It's either you do that or you carry on playing get along game and see how far that gets you. So your own survival and self-preservation will start to kick in, and you'll start to put yourself first. Now, depending how damaged you'll be at this point, that's a separate kind of question.
Right.
But when you do start to traverse that stage, your focus of attention will go from them, be it the feminist or whoever, criminals, gangs, or whatever, and you'll start to self-reflect as to what does that say about you. So if you're going back to that, are these go along, get along people pleasers? What's the deal with them? You'll find maybe on one hand it was like they're indoctrinated and they were trauma bonded and love bombed and future faked and all these other things.
Yeah.
You'll realize that these are actually a indicator of something else going on deeper, which is that the target's vulnerability, their insecurity, their need for being maybe codependent, or they felt like they were going to be looked after.
And Billy, that's exactly how they indoctrinate these young women. So it's happened to 2 of my fucking clients' kids. I mean, these are girls that were raised in a fucking solid nuclear family, very conservative, very, somewhat religious, but very principally based. Okay. And even the sons, it's weird. These 2 families, these are my anecdotal experiences that I got, with people that I know personally. But both of these daughters, they even have 2 fucking older brothers, both of them. All 3 of the kids from both of the families went to college, and both of the daughters got fucking indoctrinated because they take these young girls that are away from home. They're relying on this structure, our institution that they're paying a lot of money to educate them. And it's kind of a place where, like, these feminists take advantage of these young girls being away from their family. And that's when they predate upon them. They take advantage of their insecurities and they put them through this fucking indoctrination and they scare the shit out of them. And then they're also there to love bomb them, to be like, oh, well, the sisterhood, we're here for you, white man bad. And they make them afraid and terrified of fucking men. which is disgusting. It's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, there's a few critical parts there built
Yeah.
into what you're saying. One is it shows you the opportunistic side of the
Yes.
predator, because
Yes.
they weren't able to capture these victims beforehand. Why? Because they were the sanctuary of the family and
Yes.
of their upbringing.
Yes.
But it also shows that as parents and people with responsibility, just because you've had a good upbringing or just
Yes.
because you've got people watching out for you doesn't mean you're invincible.
Right.
There's still that blind spot or that vulnerability, that weakness is still there present. And
Right.
as good intended as we might want to be to look out for our children and to teach them discipline and morals and things like that, there is a counterintuitive side to it as well, unfortunately, because if that child hasn't been given that little extra something to be able to ensure that they can stick on the straight and narrow, then once they're given, say, for example, their independence, go be free, my child. You live your life now as an adult. You make your own decisions. I'm not responsible for you anymore. That's what the opportunity presents itself. The temptation or corrosion of
Right.
their structure.
Right.
And another sort of caveat is that, as stoic as one might like to think that they are, exposure, proximity to these predators will,
Environment.
the environment as well, yeah, it will eventually,
Erode your boundaries.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Oh yeah, because I mean, one semester away. So another key thing, and this is where I think a lot of parents go wrong. And I hear it. I've heard it many times with a lot of parents that sent their kids to college. They're like, "Oh, well, you grew up here in this community. Don't go to A&M. Go away for college." It's like that puts that young woman at more of a fucking risk because they're more isolated.
yeah,
The parents aren't around to kind of keep tabs. And after one fucking semester, one was literally lecturing their straight white dad about being sexist and racist at fucking Thanksgiving.
yeah.
Like, how
Unfortunately,
in the fuck? He's
once
like, what?
so once this vulnerability has been exploited,
Yeah.
it's torn wide open and
Yeah.
it can cascade pretty quickly. Look how, like, we talk about perseverance, for example, and fortitude, but look how persistent. Like you're talking about that camel troll earlier in the chat.
Oh my God.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
why
Yeah.
can't you take no for an answer? And that's
Right.
one of the things. That's one of the tools, is to be pesky or pester,
Yeah.
and eventually, even though you
Yep.
might block me once and tell me to F off over and over again,
Yeah.
eventually I'll rile you up enough, and now you'll play this stupid game with me.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that they're too dumb to take no for an answer. It's
Right.
they're refusing to take the no for an answer, and
Yeah.
will keep on until you enforce those boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, shit. I guess I'm
I
not
was,
going to get my counseling session.
well,
Is
I
that
was
what you're
wondering
saying,
about
Billy?
that. I was wondering. Is this the counseling session? I don't think so. Yeah.
No. This is just shit talking.
Yeah, this is just,
This was gearing up for the counseling session that you prefer we not have until I'm finished with my others, because I'm going to record them, right? I still need to figure out how to fucking
I
record.
think it would be better, but I was game for, like, if you want to do it tonight or whatever. I was like, all right, fine, we'll do it. C'est la vie sort of thing. Well, all right, let's just do it. Sort of. The title of the show. I mean, everyone's here because the title. Well, I don't know if they're here for that reason, but the title sort of indicates there's going to be a session going on.
I'll do some counseling. We kind of get lost in philosophical discussions. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe I need to get a baseline after, because I don't know, because when I do these with these other people, there's specific things that I want to say in their presence to kind of gauge how ideologically infected they are. Because I have a theory that feminism has run so rampant, especially in the past 30 fucking years, and it's completely changed the course material for, I mean, even the DSM now doesn't label fucking homosexuality as a fucking mental illness, even though it is. Like, there's so many things that women have changed once they started invading academia that I think is making society worse. So I have a hard time trusting the competency level of any of these psychologists that I'm coming into contact with. And I don't know if that's a personal problem that I need to sort out before I go into these, because I obviously have an implicit bias.
There's also a bit of a criticism towards the therapeutical angle, which I don't really want to I don't really want to use it as a put down, but unfortunately, which is where I'm differing with my services, is that I'm not here to just patch people up and make them functionable again just so that they can go through the same shit they went through before.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of counselors, they'll listen to your problems, they'll look at what's wrong,
Right.
but their objective is, what do I need to do to make you functionable again, to get back on the bike
or feel better,
feel better, well, make you function, like, what can I do to get you back to your job so that you're a participant in society? They're not really, because they don't have the time, energy, resources, investment to really want to peel open the wounds, dig deep, and do that exploration work. If you do find a therapist like that, then they're a fantastic, they're, in my book anyway, of nothingness, but in my opinion, that is a good therapist, someone who actually cares about their clients.
Right. I'm hoping to come across at least one that when I show the wound to, they're gonna fucking jab their finger into it and be like, "Are you sure?"
Right. So unfortunately, I think what most people experience is they'll try that the client will try to open up or divulge this sensitivity, this wound.
Yes.
The therapist might pick up on it, and that'll be a bit of a sort of red flag, which would be like, oh shit, quickly, let's put a plaster on that and just cover her up, then to stop you bleeding. It doesn't actually address the wound. It's just like, okay, all right, we'll here's some meds to make you feel better, or something like, they just,
or the reaction when you divulge some really traumatizing past shit, whether or not it's still affecting you today, but just saying the words of what happened, and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry you went through that," or like, "Oh," and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's a red flag, because I'm like, why in the fuck are you sorry? You weren't there, you didn't do it. Why are you saying sorry? Like, that's weird.
Yeah, you've got that sort of aspect to factor in. So again, like the relationship dynamic of the type of client they're dealing with, and the type of therapist as well. And also another sort of variable is that some of these therapists and professionals, they got a speciality. So if you're going off into the woods or on a tangent, it might actually be critical for you in terms of recovery and healing. But if you've got a specialist who isn't practiced in that area, they might deviate you from exploring that.
Right. Right.
which is
Right.
which is actually kind of harmful, because then going forwards,
Mm-hmm.
you'll mentally think, well, that's a cul-de-sac. You know what I mean by cul-de-sac? A dead end. That's a
Yeah.
don't bother go exploring your childhood, for example, maybe because they're
Right.
not, you know. So you're left with this forever mystery, and the answers that you're looking for are, you've been told to not bother going that direction. That isn't going to be my style, because I'm not really I've got my uh, my people know what I'm kind of, the shit I'll talk about, so they're familiar with the aspects. But I'm a bit more holistic in that regard. I try and make these leaps and bounds of connections.
Yeah.
Uh,
But my question is, are you going to be tough enough? Because you are you are in the feelings. Like your personality type is more catering to people's feelings.
well, there is a component in my cognitive stack which is pretty harsh and severe.
Mm,
Like,
okay.
shut the fucking mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
As much as I can fluff up my words and have these long monologues, I can become exhausted from it and just summarize it and be like, at the end of the day, fuck those crazy bitches and worry about yourself. So I
Right.
can summarize it up in a pretty blunt sentence if you want.
Yeah.
I could say to you, for example, just quit your moaning and be happy. You know, if I wanted to be callous about it,
Yeah.
it might not be very helpful. I don't normally think it is. I like to try and elaborate
Yeah.
and be a bit more poetical about it.
Yeah.
I take people on a journey. This is an emotional journey, so I was like, okay, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
But you kind of, what would help as a if people are wanting me to give them a session,
Mm-hmm.
like as in the title, it says counseling for feminism, anger management. That kind of gives me
Mm.
a heads up on like what GM is looking to have a talk about. So if you're looking
Yeah, we
for,
should just because I was trying to figure out what I should go to these crazy bitch psychologists about, and he suggested anxiety, and I'm like, I don't feel anxiety though, like, and maybe that's something I need to get to the bottom of before I go ahead and embark on this journey, because I look at it as anger towards the the results of the feminist ideology running rampant in our society and destroying it the past 100 years.
well, really, I should save this for an actual counseling session. But the anger serves a purpose as an
Right.
expression, right? Expressive behavior
Yeah.
and emotion. So it is underneath the umbrella of anxiety. Anxiety. What is anxiety? Like stress, or things are getting too much and overloaded, overwhelmed. So you bottle up, you erupt. Anger starts to manifest. So it can derive from anxiety. It doesn't have to be anger all the time. Sometimes it could be depression or something like this, or it could be avoidance. But it's stemming from this stress, this anxiety of struggling to cope.
See, I don't feel like I'm struggling to cope. I just see a problem in our society, and I want those crazy bitches to be held accountable for their
I'll put it
crimes
another
against
way.
humanity.
Um, the system you've got in place in your mind and how
Yeah.
you ordered things,
Yeah.
it is coming under strain. Is coming under maybe a perceived threat, but there's some sort of
Oh,
destruction.
no. This isn't a perceived threat. This ideology and all these people that play this stupid fucking game and abuse society and abuse men are literally destroying it and killing people and causing people to kill themselves. And it even goes as far as allowing
Causing people to
hold on, allowing mothers, Billy, hold on, allowing mothers to abuse their children for their own narcissistic fucking gain, to the point where they sterilize and like mutilate their bodies. Like, and I'm talking about the trans shit. All this shit stems from, this is the cause of feminism. And the proponents are all fucking feminists. So it pisses me off that these people are allowed to get away with what they do.
Right. And,
yes.
And if they get away with what they do, it poses a threat to society. It destroys, it corrupts, it damages.
But it's not a perception, it's actual fact.
Yeah, so whatever kind of semantics you want to use, you've got order, you've got structure,
mm-hmm.
and you've got that which is a risk, a threat, a danger, a concern, which could jeopardize what you think is valuable and you want to sustain and keep going and maintain and regulate and things like that. So and if it was to persist, it would make it harder for those in a stabilized society to be able to cope and persevere. So all of that basically umbrella causes anxiety.
But isn't anxiety felt? Like what does anxiety feel like?
It could feel like all of that sort of stuff. It could feel like stress. It could feel like being disorientated, confused, scared, maybe fearful, resentful, angry, lost. This is embarking more into the emotional landscape of how would you want to describe it. This would be where I turn to you and say, tell me how you feel.
I've told you, it pisses me off that these crazy bitches are allowed to get away with what they do.
Right. So that's your emotion, like the light board in the car dash warning light, the engine light saying,
right.
Ooga, we've got a problem here.
Yeah.
And it's trying to get your attention, because if not getting your attention, what would happen if you didn't get any of these messages as such, these indicators? You'd go along in a naive sort of way, and you would find that the rug was pulled out from underneath your feet. Surprise. So this is kind of like your anger is cluing you in. So we're doing a session right now. We're doing a counseling session, really.
No, we'll just call it a mock counseling session.
Well, no, because I'll cam up for it and be like, start the clock, and I'll be like, right, we're going to go for an hour session. Bam, make it proper, structured.
Okay, well, let's do it then. We'll kind of start over. We'll start with
It's like nearly 2:00 in the morning where I am.
Fine. Later.
We're gonna have to reschedule this, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
So I don't mean to be mean and be like, hold that thought or whatever. Hold that thought.
Right, Sam? What pisses me off the most about it is when they put innocent men in jail, are found out, and suffer no consequences after. Exactly. That is a symptom of the lack of accountability our society holds women to. As a whole society. And that's why I think I wanted a counseling session, because I want to explore my mommy issues. Because my mom was a perfect fucking example of a crazy bitch who used a system against her own fucking children and all the men she destroyed in her life. So I grew up seeing the way women do all these things. And that is just a symptom of what the crazy bitchery is capable of. Like, no accountability. And I think because psychology has been medicalized, which it shouldn't have been, and gotten the business of drug dealing,
Okay,
it's actually ruined people, and it's created these crazy bitches.
I'll give you one little thing, my little homework assignment. Or if you're gonna go get a session through your work,
oh yeah, I am.
Before we have our session, then see if you're gonna be bringing up your anger, and then you're gonna be mentioning your mother. Don't prompt them. Don't telegraph this. See if they say to you, well, FI inferior baby function is
they're not going to say that.
Well, there you go. So that's the difference between what I'll be offering and what they're going to be offering. So, you know what I just said then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only because I've been listening to Myers-Briggs freaking dissections. So talking about the stacks and the child function, the sister, blah, 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 the TI, FI, TE, blah, blah, blah.
So the answer, not the answer, but where you should direct your investigation is in that direction.
See, I don't.
Why, then you might find some answers there for you. And unfortunately, because it is an FI and it is in the third position, you won't want to look into that box. And that is knowing yourself better than you know yourself, because you'll have to have some bravery and some, it's pulling the skeletons out the closet type of stuff.
But I've already done that, Billy.
Or so you believe.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll see.
Well, then you don't need counseling then. You
know? No, I'm doing all this counseling because I'm testing the fucking competency of the field.
But you kind of already, sorry, the window. You already kind of have.
I know.
Your NI is kicking in. You already got a kind of inclination of what you expect to see happen.
I know, and I'm gonna be fucking right, and it's gonna suck.
Sorry about that. Just, the wind was going to blow my window off the hinges. So where do you want to go from here? Do you want to call it a night or what? You're nearly hitting the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, let's do that.
Otherwise, we'll just carry on jabbering for another couple of hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be continued,
so.
Is it?
I guess can be to be continued.
Don't worry, everybody. We're going to make a breakthrough with GM.
What kind of breakthrough are you hoping for, Billy?
I don't know. Thou shalt heal and slap you on the forehead or something. Like a evangelist. Leave this body, Satan.
Sam, I know there is. I know they all are. Well, most of them are. Very few. Very few are actually helpful. I only say that because I went through... Hold on. Let me count how many actual therapists I've come across, and the last one I ever saw was actually helpful. I mean, maybe close to 20.
Shit. You don't have to give me a lot of work to deal with, don't you? I'm just joking.
I'm just saying. The field is full of ideologically infected, crazy bitches. Now, I was always looking at them through a crazy bitch lens. I'm like, why does this crazy bitch have this job? There's no way. Yeah.
So I'm being contrasted with 20 already and a
Yes,
whole
that's why
corporation.
I wanted a baseline
Right.
from you to see your skills in the help department.
Wow. We'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah. Okay. Well, JR, it was good to see you. Billy throws the holy goat milk.
I was joking with GM before about instead of becoming a counselor, I should maybe become an exorcist.
Exorcist. Yeah. That would be funny. All right, everybody. Smith, it was good to see you. Sam Fisher, thanks for all your input. By the way, I went to your channel. You got some good stuff on your channel. I don't know if you ever show your channel, but definitely leave a link. Johnny Midnight, good to see you. Thanks for creating a monster, by the way, with Gone with John. Braxton, good to see you. Kush, good to see you. Hey, Kush, are you streaming tomorrow, by the way? It's holy goat milk turned into Swiss goat cheese. All right, good deal. We'll be looking out for that. All right, if I missed anybody, I know Rusty was here earlier, and Gone with John was here earlier. And of course, the crazy bitch ninja watchers who psychotically watch every one of these streams, but don't participate in the conversation because they're not allowed to. There we go.
I'll say good night and thank you, everyone. Thank you, GM.
Yeah. Thank you, Billy, for the almost counseling session. One of these days. All right.